All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving into a text that's going to really make you think.
Oh, yeah. This one's a head-scratcher for sure.
It's a translated Arabic text called Know Yourself,
Yeah.
an explanation of the oneness of being.
Yeah.
I got to say, the title alone already has me intrigued.
It grabs you, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now we're not totally sure who wrote this thing.
Right. It's a tribute to a couple of possible authors.
Yeah, it could be Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi.
Yeah, the 13th century Islamic scholar, very influential.
Super influential, especially in Sufi circles.
Exactly. Huge in Sufism. Or it could be Ahad al-Din Balyani.
Another big name in 13th century Sufism.
That's right, a Persian Sufi master.
So either way, we're dealing with some serious Sufi heavyweights here.
Absolutely. This is the heart of Sufi thought.
And the central idea of the text is, well, let's just say it's a doozy.
You could say that again. It basically says that to truly know yourself, to know God.
I mean, whoa.
Right.
That's a pretty bold statement.
It is, and it's actually rooted in a saying attributed to the Prophet Muhammad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the saying goes, whoever knows their self knows their Lord.
Okay, so this concept has some serious theological weight behind it.
Oh, absolutely. This is deep stuff.
But I got to be honest, I'm still a bit fuzzy on what oneness of being actually means.
Right. It's a big idea.
Can we unpack that a little?
For sure. It's like imagine everything you see, everything you experience.
Everything.
Yeah, all of it. It's all part of one single reality, one being.
And that being is God.
Exactly. Think of it like the ocean.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We see all these individual waves, right? But it's all just one big interconnected body of water.
So instead of being separate waves, we're all part of this one giant ocean of God.
You got it.
Mind blown.
Right. It's a pretty radical shift in perspective.
It is. So if we're already part of this oneness, this ocean of God, what's the point of self-discovery?
Okay, great question. The text uses this analogy to explain it. Imagine someone named, let's say, Mahmoud. Okay, Mahmoud.
But their whole life, they thought their name was Muhammad.
Okay, so their name's Mahmoud, but they think it's Muhammad.
Right. Now when they find out their real name.
Not like they become a different person.
Nope, they're still the same person.
Just their ignorance disappears.
Exactly.
So we're already Mahmoud, which is to say one with God.
Yeah.
But we're going around thinking we're Muhammad, this separate self.
That's the illusion.
Whoa. So all this self-discovery stuff, it's not about becoming something we're not.
No.
It's about realizing who we already are.
That's the heart of it. It's the key to knowing God.
So this text is saying that we're already there. We just got to wake up to that reality.
Exactly. It's a pretty radical departure from how we usually think about spirituality.
It is. Usually it's all about striving, reaching for something outside ourselves.
Yeah, like climbing a mountain to reach God at the top.
But this is saying, hey, you're already at the summit.
You're already there. You just haven't looked around yet.
It's like we're so focused on the climb.
We miss the view.
And what a view it is.
So how does this text deal with that whole ego death thing?
Oh, you mean the Sufi idea of fana?
Yeah, fana, passing away.
It's often interpreted as, getting rid of the ego to experience unity with God.
Annihilate the self, merge with the divine.
Right, but this text actually challenges that interpretation.
Really? How so?
It says it's not about getting rid of yourself,
Like
because you were never separate in the first place.
It's about seeing through the illusion.
Exactly, like waking up from a dream.
So less about erasing the self and more about waking up to this reality.
To the truth of who you are.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
Good.
This text is really turning my world upside down.
That's the power of these ideas.
It is. And there's this one line in the text that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
It says, the knower and the known, the one who arrives and what he arrives at, and the seer and the seen are one.
Ah, yes. That's a powerful one.
So how does that apply to us?
Well, think about it this way. Even the act of seeking God.
Yeah.
That seeking is already God knowing God's self through you.
You're saying we're not just searching for God?
No.
We are God searching for God.
We are part of that oneness, experiencing itself.
Whoa. So it's not about reaching out to something outside of ourselves.
Not at all.
It's about recognizing what's already here.
Right here, right now.
I mean, that's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, isn't it? It changes everything.
But okay, if everything is God, even the bad stuff,
Right.
like even something like, I don't know, dung,
Dung.
You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
does that mean we should just accept everything we see, no matter how unpleasant it is?
That's a great question. And the text actually addresses this directly. It says that those who truly know themselves,
Yeah.
they don't see things like dung as separate from God.
They see the divine in everything.
Exactly. Even dung. But the text acknowledges that this is a really advanced level of awareness.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a tough one to wrap your head around.
It is, for sure.
Like, I'm all for spiritual growth and expanding my consciousness and all that, but I'm not sure I'm ready to see dung as divine just yet.
Of course, of course. It's not about forcing yourself to see things a certain way.
It's about recognizing the underlying unity.
Exactly. That's the key.
But, okay, that raises another question for me. If God is experiencing everything through us, including all the bad stuff, the suffering, the pain,
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that make God responsible for all the bad things that happen in the world?
That's a really tough question, and the text doesn't offer a simple answer.
Okay, so how does it approach this idea?
Well, it reminds us that God is beyond our limited human concepts of good and bad.
Okay, so not good and bad in the way that we typically understand those terms.
Exactly. It's like trying to judge the ocean based on a single wave.
We're so caught up in the individual waves, the ups and downs of life, that we lose sight of the bigger picture.
The vastness of the ocean itself.
The ocean of being.
Exactly.
So how do we even begin to grasp this bigger picture?
Yeah. It all starts with perception.
Perception. Okay, tell me more.
The text points to a verse from the Quran. It says, "Eyes do not perceive him, but he perceives the eyes."
I remember that one.
Yeah.
It's saying that we can't really see God with our limited human vision.
Right, but the text goes deeper.
It uses this verse to make a point about perception.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
It's saying that while we may not be able to see God directly, God perceives us. God perceives the world through our very being.
So we're like, what? The lenses through which God experiences the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Wow. So God is experiencing everything we experience.
It's a powerful thought, isn't it?
It is. But doesn't that mean that God experiences all the bad stuff too?
That's a question that's been debated for centuries.
And the text doesn't really give a clear answer.
It doesn't, but it does offer a different perspective.
Oh yeah, I'm listening. What kind of perspective?
It reminds us that God is beyond our limited human concepts of good and bad. It's like trying to judge the ocean based on a single wave.
So we can't really understand God's experience based on our own limited human experience.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the importance of self-knowledge.
Knowing ourselves is the key to knowing God.
That's what this text is all about. It's about recognizing our true nature, our oneness with the divine.
Okay, so this isn't just some abstract philosophical concept.
No, not at all.
It has real, practical implications for how we live our lives.
Absolutely. And that's something we'll explore in more depth in the next part of our deep dive.
I can't wait.
We'll look at how this understanding can actually transform our relationships, our actions, and our whole worldview.
Sounds like we've got a lot more to unpack.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, so part one of this deep dive, I feel like we went deep.
We went deep.
Like really deep. We talked about the oneness of being and, you know, how this illusion of a separate self keeps us from realizing that oneness and how, like, ultimately knowing ourselves is the key to knowing God.
It's a journey for sure.
It is a journey. But I'm wondering about something. You know, we've been talking about all these, like, really profound ideas, but
Yeah.
how do we actually put them into practice? Like, in our everyday lives.
This is the million-dollar question.
It is. It is. It's all well and good to talk about the oneness of being and all that, but how does that actually, like, change how we live?
Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly.
And it's something this text, it grapples with that too.
So what does it say? Like, how does it approach this idea of actually putting these ideas into practice?
Well, for one thing, it challenges kind of the whole, like, striving thing.
Striving.
You know, like the idea that the spiritual path is all about working really hard to reach God.
Okay, yeah, like climbing a mountain to get to the top.
Exactly. But this text is saying, you know, what if you're already at the summit?
You're saying we're already there.
We are. We just haven't bothered to look around and enjoy the view yet.
I love that analogy. It's like we're so focused on the climb, we forget to appreciate where we are.
And the view is breathtaking.
So how does this text suggest we, you know, shift our perspective? Like, how do we start seeing that view?
Well, it talks about the importance of seeking guidance.
Guidance. from like a teacher or something.
Yeah, like a spiritual master, someone who's already walked this path.
Okay, so it's not about figuring it all out on our own.
No, not at all.
We need someone to show us the way.
Think of it like learning a new skill, like playing an instrument. Could you teach yourself? Maybe, but having a teacher can make all the difference.
Yeah, they can help you avoid those common mistakes.
Exactly, and they can help you progress much faster.
So how do we find those teachers, those spiritual guides?
Well, that's where traditions like Sufism come in. You know, they offer a framework of practices and teachings.
Well, it's not just about reading books and having intellectual discussions.
No, it's about embodying these truths in our life.
It's about practice.
Exactly, and it's about community.
Finding people who are on the same path.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is a journey, and it's much easier to navigate with the support of others.
Okay, that makes sense. But, I'm still wrestling with some of these ideas.
Oh, yeah. Which ones in particular?
Like this whole idea that everything is God. I get it intellectually, but it just seems so counterintuitive to my, everyday experience.
It is a challenging concept, for sure.
It is. So how can we start to shift our perspective? How can we begin to see the divine in everything, even the things that seem, less than divine?
The text actually addresses this. It points to a verse from the Quran. Eyes do not perceive him, but he perceives the eyes.
Right. We talked about that in the last part. It's saying that we can't truly see God with our limited human vision.
Right, but the text uses this verse to make a point about perception.
So what's the point?
It's saying that while we may not be able to see God directly, God perceives us. God perceives the world through our very being.
So we're like, what? The eyes through which God experiences the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
That is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But it also raises another question for me. If God is experiencing the world through us, does that mean God experiences everything we experience?
Everything.
Even the bad stuff? Like the suffering, the pain?
That's a profound question, and one that's been debated for centuries.
In this text, it doesn't really give a definitive answer.
It doesn't. But it does offer a different perspective.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of perspective?
It reminds us that God is ultimately beyond our limited human concepts of good and bad.
Okay, so not good and bad in the way that we typically understand those terms.
Exactly. It's like trying to judge the ocean based on a single wave.
I like that analogy. We get so caught up in those individual waves, the ups and downs of life,
The highs and lows.
that we lose sight of the bigger picture,
The vastness of the ocean.
the ocean of being.
Exactly.
But okay, that brings up another question.
Okay, what is it?
If everything is God, doesn't that mean, there's no consequences for our actions?
I see where you're going with this.
Does that excuse bad behavior?
Well, the text is not suggesting we should abandon our sense of morality.
Okay.
In fact, it actually argues that true self-knowledge, the kind of knowing yourself that leads to knowing God,
Yeah.
it leads to a deeper understanding of our interconnectedness and a greater sense of compassion for all beings.
So it's not about saying anything goes.
No.
It's about recognizing that our actions have ripple effects.
Exactly.
They impact the whole...
The whole ocean of being.
Wow. This whole idea of knowing yourself as God, it's really not just some abstract philosophical concept.
Yeah, not at all.
It has real practical implications.
For sure. And in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some of those practical implications in more detail.
We're going to look at how this understanding can actually transform our relationships, our actions, our whole way of seeing the world.
That's going to be good.
Can't wait. So we've been on quite the journey with this text.
Yeah, 2 parts already.
2 parts. Diving deep into this idea of oneness and how, knowing yourself is the key to knowing God.
Such a powerful concept.
It is. And, it's really challenged me to, re-examine some of my assumptions about everything.
It's definitely a perspective shifter.
It is. It is. And in this final part, I really want to, bring it all home.
Yeah. Make it practical.
Make it practical, exactly.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about the illusion of the separate self and how understanding our inherent oneness can lead to a more compassionate, interconnected way of living.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we actually, live that out?
Yeah. How do we take these big ideas and make them real in our everyday lives?
Well, the text actually ends with a really thought-provoking question.
Oh, yeah. What's the question?
It asks, if everything is God, what does that mean for how you see the world, your actions, and your relationship with others?
Whoa.
I know, right?
That's a big one.
It's like the text is throwing down the gauntlet.
It is. It's a challenge.
It is. It's saying, okay, you've heard all this stuff about oneness and self-knowledge and God, but what are you going to do about it?
It's putting the ball in our court.
Exactly. So I guess what I'm wondering is, like, what are some of the practical implications of this idea? Like, if we really take seriously this idea that everything is God, how does that change how we live our lives?
Well, for one thing, it changes how we see the world.
Okay. How so?
If everything is God, then everything is sacred.
So it's not just about, like, respecting holy places or religious rituals.
No, it's about recognizing the divine in everything.
In nature, in people, in, like, the mundane, everyday stuff.
Everything.
That's a pretty radical shift in perspective.
It is.
And I imagine it would change how we act, too.
Oh, absolutely. If we truly see the divine in all beings,
Yeah.
we're going to treat them differently. We're going to act with more compassion, more kindness, more understanding.
So it's not about, like, becoming some kind of saint or anything.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity, our shared divinity.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's a beautiful way to live.
It is. It is. And you know, this whole deep dive, it's really made me think about the importance of self-knowledge.
Yeah, it's the foundation of everything.
It is. It's like, if we don't know ourselves, we can't really know anything else, can we?
We can't know God. We can't know the world. We can't know our place in it all.
So I guess the question is, how do we cultivate that self-knowledge?
Well, that's a whole other deep dive.
Oh, yeah, we could talk about that for hours.
But the text, it does give us some clues.
Okay, like what?
Well, it emphasizes the importance of practice.
Okay, so not just reading books and having these intellectual discussions.
No, it's about embodying these truths in our lives. It's about finding a spiritual practice that resonates with us and committing to it.
So meditation, prayer, yoga, things like that.
Yeah, or it could be something else entirely.
The important thing is to find something that helps us connect with that inner wisdom.
That's right. And the text also emphasizes the importance of seeking guidance.
From a teacher, a spiritual master.
Exactly. Someone who's already walked this path and can help us navigate the challenges along the way.
So it's not about figuring it all out on our own.
No, not at all. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
We're all part of this one big, interconnected ocean of being.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to that central idea that to truly know yourself is to know God.
It's the heart of it all.
It is. And, you know, this whole deep dive has really been a journey of self-discovery for me.
I'm glad to hear that.
It has. It has. It's challenged me to, like, really look at myself and the world in a new way.
That's the power of these ideas. They have the potential to transform us.
They do. They really do. And I hope that our listeners have been challenged and inspired by this deep dive as well.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise. And to everyone listening out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Know Yourself, an explanation of the oneness of being.
Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of existence.
Until next time, farewell.
Farewell.